Hey everyone, I've been sharing out all my stories about the visionary state experiences I've had throughout my life, and at the same time, I've been getting ready to move back to Denver where some of the stuff has happened that I'm right in the middle of sharing. So it's kind of interesting to think that I might be moving back to Denver. So it's pretty much tentative. That's like the plan at the moment. So I'm not working for the ice cream shop anymore. I've mentioned that we had to part ways just because me and that manager or the owner don't really like each other. Where it's probably more her problem than mine, because I think I'm a more friendly, accepting person than they are. Ha! And then there's Papa John's. They're just cutting off all their most of their drivers just to use DoorDash, and so I'm somewhat unemployed. I still have a good friend with a gift shop in Hungry Horse that would really like me to come up and work at least one day a week. So I'd like to keep that up and just keep my work schedule really minimal while I'm packing and moving. And at the same time, hopefully, I would really love to finish my story. So I've been making these videos more frequently than I used to. I was too busy working and too exhausted after work. Now I've got a lot more free time. So maybe I will try to go like once a day until I get these stories caught up. And I really want my stories to catch up to where I'm at now, because I also really want to share the stuff that I'm gonna do just as much as I want to share the stuff that I have experienced, right? And today I wanted to talk about something that almost slipped my mind before. I can't wait to get to the part where I time traveled in the visionary state for a pretty good distance and for a pretty good length of time. So first time I did one like that, but before doing that, there were a number of conversations in the visionary state to actually prepare me for this. And this is the time, not a close friend of mine, but I had a number of friends that I knew because like I listen to electronic music and we smoke pot together. And Blaine doesn't come around very much, but this one time Blaine came over, he knew a little bit about me. And since he was moving away, he was just trying to get rid of some of his extra stuff. And he had these really neat gold colored scarves. They're like really light material. And he said they were blessed by the Dalai Lama. And he's like, well, I don't really need these. It's like, maybe you should have them since you're such a spiritual person. And then he asked me if I believed in time travel. And I said, well, I've never seen it for myself, but I'm pretty sure anything's possible. It's one of those things where I don't see how it's physically possible, but you never know. So I figure if anything, people could probably have prophetic dreams and visions. But physical time travel, I really have a hard time figuring out how, some chunk of physical matter can pop up in another point in the timeline. That's kind of difficult to figure out. So, anyways, so he started telling me that time travel is real and that I'm going to experience it. Man, he sounded like he knew what he was talking about. So I must have went to one of these visionary slips where he was explaining some stuff that's going to happen. So the building I live in, the Acacia building, was going to be under construction because they were going to repave some of the sidewalk areas and put in some new windows in the. And so it was. Man, what is the term? So it's a project called New Pathways, New Windows, and I felt like this is a really neat concept title, actually. So it was something where I'm not sure if he's just talking about the construction or what's actually happening to me. So, and he said, and now while the building's under construction and this is all going on, you're going to see members of New Order around the building. So now this is interesting because I'm not sure like exactly when I had this visionary slip with Blaine. Probably sometime in '99, but again, a little bit of that came true. So the next time trip I'm going to talk about, I leave from November of '99 and wind up in the end of January of 2000, and then I'm there till about June. Now, there's that period in between where I left and landed, where I went to see my dad around Christmas and then came back for that first part of that month. And that's when the building started to come under construction, and it seemed like the doors were unlocked quite a bit, or people could just come and go. Normally it's kind of tight, like the doors are locked, you got to call someone to get in. So So I had these friends up the hall, and these are the people where when I very first came to Denver, I made friends with this guy named David. He brought me home, introduced me to his sisters, introduced me to Freya, which introduced me to Rosie. Like the very first trip to Denver, I made the connection I needed to be here in Montana. And so it just seemed like I made all kinds of funky connections, to the extent that I got paranoid after a while, thinking, that there must be a bunch of people that know who I am, doing this to me. So at one point, I went over to Amy's house. I don't remember what the reason was for, but I saw a guy sitting on the couch that looked like Bernard Sumner did a long time ago. The way he has the fade on the side and everything. And she said something like she had this friend over here that wants to get me into the music business or something. And it was just really subtle and fast. And I don't know, I think I was just really busy trying to take care of something. And then I thought I seen him, and I thought I seen Jillian around the building as well, their keyboard player. And then I think when it was all catching up with me, it's like I thought I saw a clip of New Order members in our building. Now I think something that Blaine said in this conversation is that New Order are time travelers, and in the early 80s they time traveled to the to year 2000 and were exposed to the type of music we were listening today. And so when they went back and did Power, Corruption, and Lies, they were exposed to the music of the future, and that's why they had such a futuristic sound. Now, wouldn't it be colorful if that was true? I mean, they were just, very precocious musicians. They had a really advanced playing style for 1983, actually, in reality. But then I did remember, see, when I went to my dad's house for Christmas, a couple of funny things happened down there as well. So I finally watched Fifth Element, and that's where I thought I saw myself in the movie, and then later on realized I wasn't in the movie. It was more like they spliced in a section of video that was taken in Denver. And so similarly, I was watching videos with my dad, or I don't remember, and maybe we were watching videos at my dad, because I just remember at my dad's house, because I remember maybe the video for Confusion, there's like some parts where you see them running down the stairs. Well, it looked like they were at my apartment building running down the stairs, kind of like in another video I'd mentioned, watching Frontline Assembly's video for Isolate. It looks like there's a part of the video in reality where the room looks similar to my apartment, but when I was watching it and having those visionary slips, it looked like it was actually in my apartment. And then there was that movie I watched at my friend's house. I just watched it for a little bit. You've Got Mail. The lady was in an apartment that looked like they filmed it in my place. So this stuff started to add up at one point, and I thought, how are they doing this? But so at any rate, this is when Blaine told me about New Pathways, New Windows. It's a special program going on. He let me know that I'm going to time travel, and he let me know that New Order time traveled, and that's when I thought later on maybe he was right. I mean, he was all gone. I couldn't talk to him again because he was moving. But the thing is he left me those blessed scarves, blessed by the Dalai Lama. So, and I still have those in my storage at the moment. I just hope the mice don't get in and chew those up, right? So, what I wanted to talk about is, how this ties in with some earlier conversations. Like, so he was warning me or prepping me to be ready for time travel. Like, Jason explained to me about the parallel dimensional timeline, and he said we could be in it right now. You get there from a visionary state, and again, part of the prophecy is true, part of the prophecy is false. What prophecy are we talking about? He's like, well, this is a prophecy, and then he told me a lot of information. And then Rosie Clearlight, I had another visionary slip where she gave me a call and explained the same idea that, I'm going to time travel about a year from then. So we were talking in about the fall of 98. So just about a year or so later, I did, in fact, do a pretty significant time trip that I'm going to tell you about. And then at the same time, she was telling me a couple of different times, like, I'm going to go to the past and I'm going to go to Armageddon. I don't think I've gone to the past, and I certainly haven't gone to Armageddon. Now, so that's where I feel like I'm getting educated on what this is. Now, earlier on, I even remember back in middle school when I was in art class, this woman pulling me aside and telling me, you're part of a special program, and you need to be on your best behavior, or we're going to pull you out of that, And so that was right around the time we went to a field trip on the Navy base, where we saw a really cool air show and stuff. And And so I was one of the people that wanted to climb in an airplane and try on a helmet, because I used to watch these jets circling the sky, because we lived like the next island over from the Navy base. So they saw that I was interested in being a pilot, so they took me on a little tour in one of the hangars with a few other kids and showed us the big jets. Like, you could go right up and put your hand on it. I just thought that was so neat. But I was like wanting to run to the bathroom, and the guy told me, that was giving us the tour, that I need to stop and wave to somebody that's in one of the control rooms on the way up the hall, and that he was not he wasn't a Navy officer. He was somebody from the music business. So when I went by and waved to him, the guy looked like he could have been Bill Lee, right? But I didn't know what Bill Lee really looked like yet, so like something I had to figure out later. And it's like, okay, so we're there at a career day, and I'm being told, say hi to this guy. And there was another time we were at some event, and there was like a Navy band, and I was chatting with them a little bit, and they told me I might be interested in a project called Frontline Assembly, right? So there's like all these weird little connections coming up through the years, where somebody's telling me that I'm part of a special program. I see in middle school, and that was like around the time that I went to that career day. And then let me see, the special program was brought up in '98 when I went to see my dad, and I went to visit his landlord. So she said I'm part of a special program, and she asked me if I remembered the kid up the street named Billy, and explained all that. And then so stuff like that, so I feel like, okay, so these are some steps in educating me on what the time travel is, and that it is a special education program. But again, it makes you wonder why, some of this other stuff, it sounds like I was being tricked into introducing myself to a married man, being told this is the person who's going to ask me to marry him someday. And of course that made me look pretty bad, and that sounds pretty delusional. But coming back to what I'm sharing here, I really love this term, new pathways, new windows, because to me, discovering the visionary state and how information can be distributed, and the potential to see the future really is a life-changing event in itself, So that's why I think it's so interesting. Even though the story's kind of personal, I think it can be kind of boring for that reason, and maybe there are too many details. But that's because, the story's it's kind of like I'm putting out a rough draft of the story. And if I could get with some people and make a movie, we would definitely refine it quite a bit, right? So I don't know if this would make a great movie. It would be one of those movies based on a true story, so that way we don't have to bring up the people who were really in my life and embarrass them in front of everyone. Right? So I don't know, because when somebody told me there's going to be a movie made about me someday, or a book written about me someday, I thought, well, that could happen. I think it's a colorful story, and that's why there's so many stories out there that are already about time travel in the parallel dimension. I mean, Peter Pan's a classic, Groundhog Day's a classic, and then there's Contact. There's probably like so many movies that really it's always to do with parallel dimensional time travel. You're going into a visionary state experience where you don't lose time and you come back to the same point you left off, and that's pretty much what's happening here. So new pathways and new windows. So I'm thinking, the next time I make a video, I really want to talk about the major time slip I went through. So again, in '98 and in '99, talking to Jason, talking to Rosie and Blaine, they all were telling me information to prepare me for time travel, at least in the visionary state. So that makes sense to me. I see where that's possible, and that since I've experienced it, I know that it's possible. So again, when we're talking about prophetic information, it's just information. However, being able to see glimpses of the future is very possible, and there's a good reason for that. So anyways, oh my goodness, I got an itchy nose. So you might notice when I make videos, I have a hard time breathing and stuff. So I'm probably not a great talker and stuff, but if you're willing to put up with me and my breathing problems, maybe we'll make it through the story to the other side, because I'm really, again, looking for people. Like, I don't want to go to a federally licensed counselor that's going to issue me some medications to dumb me down and make me quit talking about this. I want to find somebody that knows what I'm talking about, and I'd love to hear more accounts of people who have had parallel dimensional time travel. Like I've mentioned, my Kung Fu teacher Rosie's had them, and my dad says he may have had them, not as many. So these are time slips or visionary slips where, first time I heard of it actually was, I was probably in 11th grade, 17, 18 years old. I was reading up on this stuff thinking, I think as long as I've read about paranormal stuff, I thought, I wish I could, see the future. I wish I could have vision. So um, maybe as a consequence, that's why I'm experiencing that. So I was aware of it a little bit before I started catching on that it was happening. And I think I read one article in particular that says when you're in visionary state, you really can't tell the difference. And you don't usually catch on until later that you've been there because of the way things add up, So I think it's super interesting, and it might be important later on. So the reason I can talk about it, and I'm a little more clear-headed, I don't think I've been going to visionary state for quite a while. I think it's been a long time since I've had a good visionary slip. So, but that doesn't mean it's never going to happen again. So that's why I feel like I need to make sure I'm prepared if they happen, especially if they're useful, because that just might be the reason I'm getting trained for them. So it kind of has me a little bit concerned that I may be getting trained to survive something difficult. And I've always believed that when you're dealing with stuff where like in a way a lot of things are out of your hands and you don't have any good leadership around you, don't really have someone to ask. You're in a let's say you're just in the middle of an emergency scenario. There's really no one to ask. Then you have to be able to go on your intuition and being able to use your best judgment. And that's where the visionary state experiences may be teaching me how to receive information. So that way, if I live to see the day that it's kind of chaos out here and the infrastructure is not as it is, we may depend more so on our guidance to be able to navigate an era where we lose the typical infrastructure we're used to having, because that's the worst case scenario for modern people is what if we lose electricity and communication and we don't have fuel. So just one way to look at its useful qualities. At any rate, I really wanted to share about this one last conversation where I'm being prepared for time travel by Blaine, and just reflect on a number of the other conversations where I'm being educated during the visions about the visions to prepare me for better ones or more, longer. And so again, I keep forgetting stuff, so that's where I can't wait to do sort of a catch-up video where I'm going to take all these stories and tie them together. And that's going to be somewhere in the middle of leaving for visionary state, coming back, and then catching up to where I was going into visionary state. And that's when I'm like, aha, that's what's happening. That's why all this information from the future keeps getting sent to the past. So it took quite a while to figure out how is information from the future getting sent to the past. And so it's really kind of, to me, it's kind of humorous how some of this is done. So whoever's communicating with me is very intelligent, but they're also very funny. So I appreciate that very much if that's what's happening and it's benevolent and it's for good reason. I appreciate it. But what I really hate is how embarrassing it is. I think at the embarrassing part when I'm dealing with it and I'm in the middle of dealing with Frontline Assembly and my friends, it also shows me just how people respond. So this is super important to understand. I kind of wanted to touch on, just for fun, around this time, maybe 98 into 99. I went to a runes reader just because I've been looking for somebody to help me understand why am I going to visionary state and being directed to Bill Lieb and experiencing some of the things I'm doing. And this runes reader told me, she was a cool older lady. I think her name was Betty White, maybe, introduced to me by a younger guy that, I just hit it off with somebody and we're talking about psychic awareness and stuff. And so he was talking about there's a thing called a star seed. Maybe you should go meet my friend and she'll tell you about it. And so I don't know if I'm a star seed, but it's a lovely concept of beings who reincarnate that have been on higher planets or higher realities to help upstep the planet. So this runes reader says, I'm not being punished, but what it is that I'm facing adversity because I'm somebody who's in a position to do a lot of good in the world. And it's like, well, that's actually very uplifting, and I feel like that's why, you know, I came to stay with Rosie, because she feels the same way, that she always thought she should assist me, because she knows that that I can that I'm in a position to do a lot of good things in the world, you know. So she told me she's always known that I'm gifted, and that's why she's trying to help me and that type of thing. So I like to think that you know, part of what's happening is because I'm gifted and I'm being put in a position to be to have positive impact in the world around me. But it's hard to do the kind of work I do. It's not something where you go to college and get a degree and it looks normal. It's an education you get that, you know, doesn't happen between four walls. It's an education you get outside of your body. So anyways, I'd like to wrap this up and sharing just this last aspect before we move to the actual visionary trip, or the visionary slip, or I call it the time trip, the visionary slip. This one I think is one of my favorite stories, and I can't wait to tell you, so I'll see you soon.